Welcome back to the Hilt Academy's YouTube channel. I hope this video finds you well. You're probably whitewater rafting through a great deal of change or intensity professionally or personally. And you maybe just want a little break in your day. Maybe you wanted a distraction. So I'm glad you're here. It's likely that much of the change that you are going through right now has been created by your own leadership. Just saying. It's probably true that most of it's good change, or at least it's going to end up eventually being good change when the experience becomes normalized in the coming years. I'm asked often for some perspective about change as a leader. It's one of the most common themes that come up in conversations. Specifically, people are most curious about how to communicate about what's going on before and in the early stages and middle stages of change, and later in the stages when normalizing the sweeping pivots of your leadership have really begun to take hold. So here then are a few of my thoughts, and with all iterative change, I might even change my thoughts about change later. So everybody loves change, but nobody wants to do anything differently. You've heard that before. We all laugh about that comment whenever we hear it. It's simultaneously true and incredibly annoying. I didn't coin the phrase, but I really like it, and I use it often. You may have particular faces and names that come to mind as you hear that. Notice your emotional response even as you think about these people. We like the idea of change, but once it impacts our habits, the reality is a little bit less desirable than the concept of change. We also claim to like change as long as it means that other people change their unhelpful and irritating ways, while we get to stay pretty much the same, because after all, we're quite good at what we do. That, we think, will solve everything. How many times have we thought and maybe even muttered to ourselves, if they would just stop that behavior, everything would be good, right? Well, I've learned a few things from skilled leaders as they guide their large and small companies through transition. And a more clinical and emotionless word than change is the word transition. So have fun with that as I change that word around. The good ones all follow these, by the way, 4 disciplines. Here they are. We'll go through them quickly so you can just grab them and run with them. First, they assume good intent. They start with good intent as the motive when someone complains or resists the specifics of a particular change. They assume good intent when someone disagrees. They trust that the intent behind even annoying actions is probably good. Their intent, while different than yours, is most likely a good one, especially if you examine it when it stands on its own. And while the intent may be difficult to discover at first, it may result in a lack of alignment when you discover it, and good leaders assume that the motive driving the actions or the inaction is good and reasonable in and of itself. It's where they always start. And they assume that on the rare occasions when intent is not good, when it is malicious, it will eventually present itself with stunning clarity. Dealing with that is probably a topic for another set of videos. All right, so second, they communicate directly and they avoid triangulation. Gossip is the single most destructive force in any organization, even in families that are navigating change. I cannot overstate the damage that it creates, both in the near and long terms. It erodes trust, and it leaves teams wondering about the hidden agenda of others. Avoid it at all costs. Great leaders do not triangulate, and they will not tolerate it in those that they lead. They communicate directly, going to the source, and they refuse to entertain the drama that is fueled by triangulation. Change, especially of the magnitude that you and your enterprise may be embarking upon, is almost always prompted by significant problems, or in some cases by significant opportunities that have been building for quite some time. People are already on edge because of that reality. And like a dry forest in August, the fuel of their anxiety is set ablaze by triangulation and drama. Triangulation means that when Bob is frustrated with Sue, he talks to Pat about Sue instead. He's gossiping, to use an old word, We may have convinced ourselves if we're doing it, or he may have convinced himself when he's doing it, that he's getting perspective, or he's venting, or he's seeking guidance, or he's testing theories, or he's learning. But we all know he's triangulating simply to avoid difficult, uncomfortable, and direct communication about the conflict. To underscore my point, great leaders will not tolerate triangulation, and they do not practice it themselves. Rather, great leaders communicate directly, and when approached by someone bent on talking about frustrations that they have with someone else, regardless of the organizational hierarchy, the leader interrupts and redirects. He or she may ask, well, have you talked to her about this? And they add, well, you need to go talk directly. And then they say, when are you going to do that? When are you going to have that conversation? And they don't let it pass. And everyone quickly learns that if you come to that leader and try to triangulate, you will be held accountable for engaging in creating a solution directly. All right, third, they never believe the first report. In times of fundamental or even strategic change, whether it's slow or fast, whether it's complex or simple, frustration is going to be there. This is especially true when people first experience the day-to-day reality of change and when their beloved habits need to change. When people come to complain about the changes and wax emotionally about how bad the changes are, great leaders never believe the first report of a frustration or of a mistake or even the impact of the change. They know that there's more to the story, often much more. Fourth, they never trust lonely numbers. So lonely numbers are presented absent of their context. They often create shock and awe, but when compared with other numbers, their meaning is changed. An example, 17 people died in a hurricane. Well, that's a lonely number. Well, 17 people died in a hurricane, and 9 of them were in a passenger van driven by an 80-year-old who lost control of the vehicle before the winds hit 40 miles per hour. Oh, now I have the picture. Another example. We've got $500,000 in the bank. That's also a lonely number. When you put it with other numbers, you discover the context. Our monthly salary burn is $370,000, and our accounts payable is $2,200 per day. Do some math, and you'll find out that $500,000 in the bank doesn't seem like much. Context, context, context. So avoid lonely numbers. They are a manipulative tool. Sure, you get my point. You're probably quite good at this skill, but you may need to teach those around you who are leading change how to use this skill particularly and to do it well. Leaders like yourself always ask for context. They never accept a sloppy number like everyone thinks, or they all say, or no one thinks. A lonely number is presented without any numbers to give it context. There's no other data point around it. Another example, 5 people failed at this new way of doing it, or 3 people are looking for a new job. Those are lonely numbers. Ask, how many people succeed at the new way compared to those who succeeded and failed after a few attempts? How many times did those people fail at the old way before it became common practice? How many people on staff are looking for new jobs at any given moment in time? Lonely numbers are meaningless. They're lazy and they're manipulative. Great leaders make decisions in broader context than what's passionately presented by a frustrated few. And they relentlessly communicate the context in which change lives. Let me say that again. They are relentless. Great leaders practice all 4 of these simple thought and communication disciplines. They're especially good at using them during times of high stress change, the kind of change that leaves people feeling threatened and afraid and insecure. Try one of these on for size each week for the next month. Teach your teams to think and communicate this way as well. Start with the first one in week 1, then add one each week until you've got all 4 out running around. You're going to be surprised at the positive impact that they will have. These are, by the way, disciplines. You have to choose to do them. They will rarely become a habit. So to be clear, it's likely that the changes that you are creating will not turn out exactly the way you expected or planned, but when managed well, they'll still be really good. Keep up the good work. Leadership is hard. A lot of leadership is bringing about change. But don't make it harder than it needs to be by missing these 4 disciplines. Here's to you.